Beneath the Earth's surface lives a cabal of ancient, giant, divine creatures. The only thing that prevents them from rising and destroying our societies is regular human sacrifice. It is revealed that several secret laboratories have been established around the world to carry out this process. They find and sacrifice hundreds of young people every month to appease these divine beings. Lynn anxiously reveals that a similar laboratory in Stockholm has failed in its task. Now it is up to them and the Japanese laboratory to meet their quota of human sacrifices. Although they are surprised by the news, they assure Lynn that they will not mess it up. Elsewhere, on a nearby university campus, Dana is packing her bag for an upcoming weekend trip. She is soon joined by her two close friends, Jules, and her boyfriend, Kurt. The trio loads their luggage into an RV. After a while, they are joined by other members of the group, Marty the stoner and Holden, a transfer student. Kurt takes the wheel and they head to his cousin's cabin in a nearby forest. None of these students know that they are about to be the next group of human sacrifices. On the way to the cabin, the group passes through a mountain tunnel, not realizing they are entering an invisible, one-way dome. They finally reach their destination, and everyone begins to unpack. Holden goes to his room where he sees a creepy painting depicting a flayed horse. This scares him, so he removes the painting only to discover that it hides a one-way mirror. On the other side is Dana, who is changing in her own room at that moment. Holden quickly shows the mirror to the rest of the group and decides to switch rooms with Dana. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, Steve and Gary watch the young people through cameras they have hidden throughout the cabin. They are making the final preparations to begin the ritual sacrifice process. The young people, oblivious to everything, start a party, breaking out the alcohol and putting on music. They play Truth or Dare, and it's Dana's turn. Just as she chooses Dare, a secret cellar door bursts open behind them. While the rest of the group is stunned, Jules dares Dana to go down the stairs. Dana doesn't back down, grabs a flashlight, and begins to explore the cellar. She discovers it's filled with strange antiques left by the previous owners. Soon, the rest of the group joins her, and they explore the mysterious room together. Dana picks up an old nearby diary, and the group quickly huddles around her. It turns out, the diary belonged to someone named Anna Patience Buckner, who lived in 1903 with her sadistic family, led by the patriarch John Buckner. As Dana reads the last words of the diary, the corpses of the Buckner family mysteriously rise from a nearby grave. Later that night, Marty, who is ingesting a forbidden substance, tells Dana that something strange is happening, and he doesn't understand why Jules is acting like a dumb blonde when she's actually smart. Kurt is also suddenly behaving like a typical high school jock when he's actually a sociology student on a full academic scholarship. Marty shares his theory that there might be puppeteers controlling them. "I don't even like what I'm smoking," he says, but Dana dismisses his ideas. As the young couple begins to make out in the woods, they are unaware that a room full of technicians is watching them. The engineers release an artificial pheromone mist and illuminate the path to a clearing where the couple can have their encounter. Everyone in the lab watches as Jules and Kurt have an intimate moment. In this romantic moment, the Buckners arrive and stab a dagger into Jules's hand. Kurt, horrified, is also impaled in the back, but manages to hit one of the corpses. As the fight intensifies, Jules runs towards her boyfriend, but is dragged away by another zombie. Poor Kurt can only watch in horror as the monsters cut off her head with a saw. Moments later, the engineers say a small prayer before activating a mechanism that drains Jules' blood into an underground pipe, which eventually leads to a stone tomb. In the cabin, Marty smokes another cigarette to avoid thinking about the voices he's hearing, which aren't helping. He also decides to urinate outside, but a bloodied Kurt suddenly appears and drags him back into the cabin. Kurt tells the group that Jules is dead and that they must start boarding up all the doors and windows. Confused, Dana refuses to comply and opens the door to look for her friend. But this turns out to be a bad decision, as she comes face to face with a horrible sight. John Buckner's zombie is standing on the porch and throws Jules's severed head. Dana screams in horror as the guys somehow manage to close the door. Kurt then tells them that no matter what, they must stay together, but the engineers release a gas, and he suddenly changes his mind. He tells the group they should split up to cover more ground. Shortly after, a zombie breaks down the front door, forcing the group to separate and hide in their individual rooms. The engineers press another button that automatically locks all the doors. While Marty is closing a window, he accidentally knocks over a lamp. Looking at the broken lamp, he sees a small hidden camera. Surprised, he pulls a long cable hidden inside the walls of his room. This makes him realize that his suspicions were correct. Someone is watching them. Unfortunately, before he can inform the others, tragedy strikes. The window behind him bursts open, and John Buckner's corpse drags him outside. Marty fights tooth and nail to save his life, hitting the zombie with his thermos and managing to create some separation. But the corpse throws a dagger that hits Marty in the back. The poor stoner collapses to the ground, screaming and crying for help. He sinks, but his pleas fall on deaf ears, and the corpse drags him into a nearby grave. Just as before, the engineers open the pipe, and the blood drains into the underground stone tomb. The ground rumbles as the gods accept the second sacrifice. Meanwhile, Dana, trapped in a panic in her room, becomes even more worried when she sees an undead creature approaching her window. Fortunately, Holden rescues her by breaking the one-way mirror that separates their rooms. He pulls her to his side, and the duo immediately starts boarding up the windows. It's then that they find a trapdoor in the floor and realize they have no other way out, so they both escape through it. As soon as they land below, Dana makes a horrible revelation. They have arrived in the torture room described in the diary. The duo begins to look for a possible exit when suddenly one of the corpses grabs onto the trapdoor and tries to climb up, but Dana manages to stop it by stabbing a lever directly into its neck. She then grabs a nearby knife and stabs the undead repeatedly, filled with fury. Just then, a door in the wall of the torture room opens. The duo prepares for the arrival of more zombies, but receives a pleasant surprise. Kurt enters through the door and quickly gets them out of the torture room. Once outside, they jump into their RV, and Kurt takes the wheel to finally escape from that hellhole. The scene changes abruptly, and we see that Japan has failed in its sacrifice to the gods. Now, it's up to Steve and Gary to meet the quota of human sacrifices at any cost. The duo's panic only increases when they notice the RV is heading towards the mountain tunnel. Gary suddenly remembers that the road is still open and realizes he has made a mistake. It turns out the demolition team hasn't started the explosion due to a technical problem, so he runs to the pyrotechnics department and fixes the glitch himself. He finally gets the operation underway, and moments later, an explosion destroys the tunnel entrance. Large rocks begin to collapse, and the group of survivors is forced to quickly reverse the RV. They are now trapped, as the tunnel was their only way out of the forest. However, they realize there is a chasm between their current position and a road on the other side. Kurt comes up with a plan. He will take his motorcycle, which was tied to the back of the RV, and try to jump to the other side to get help in the nearest town. He backs up and accelerates at full speed towards the gap between the roads. For a moment, it seems he will make it safely, but unfortunately, he crashes directly into the invisible force field. Kurt dies instantly, and his body, along with the shattered motorcycle, falls into a deep trench. This causes the two remaining friends to scream in horror and rush back to the RV. They then have a tense conversation during which Dana claims that Marty was right all along. Someone is watching and controlling their every move. They will never escape unless they find a way to discover who is behind all this. Unfortunately for them, one of the corpses appears inside the RV. It stabs Holden in the throat with a sharp rod, killing him on the spot. A petrified Dana screams as the RV goes out of control and crashes into a nearby lake. As the vehicle sinks deeper into the water, the zombie tries to grab Dana's leg, but she desperately kicks it in the face and somehow manages to swim to the surface. Back at the lab, all the employees begin to celebrate with cheers. It turns out that 4 sacrifices are enough to appease the gods. The death of the virgin, in this case, Dana, is optional. It doesn't matter if she lives or dies, as long as she suffers at the hands of the monsters. Meanwhile, Dana crawls to the shore of the lake and realizes all her friends are dead. But her struggles are far from over. The zombie that had attacked her in the RV emerges from the lake and walks towards her as she lies on her back, exhausted. It begins to strangle her. On the other hand, Gary approaches the demolition team and jokes about how close they came to failing the mission. But the team insists they never received his orders because there was a power failure in their system. It's clear that someone has sabotaged the hidden cables in the killing field. Suddenly, the phone in the control room starts to ring. Steve answers it. It's the lab's director, and she has bad news. It turns out one of the students besides Dana is still alive, and the ritual has not been completed. Meanwhile, Dana is about to be stabbed, but the zombie suddenly collapses behind her. It turns out it was the work of Marty, who miraculously managed to survive. "I'm alive," he tells her. The two flee, and Marty leads her inside one of the graves. To Dana's total surprise, she sees that the grave is actually the entrance to a huge tunnel. The dismembered remains of one of the nearby zombies are also there. It's revealed that Marty somehow managed to kill the monster that had dragged him to the grave. He was also the one who caused the power failure mentioned by the demolition team. After this, Marty shows Dana an elevator he discovered under the grave. It is now obvious to both of them that someone sent those zombies after them. If they want to escape, the only way is down. So they jump into the elevator along with the zombie's severed arm. Within minutes, the elevator takes them deep into a vast network of dungeons. The two friends soon find themselves face to face with various types of monsters locked in glass cages. Seeing them, Dana suddenly realizes a heartbreaking truth. The people behind all this made them choose what kind of monster they would face. She had unknowingly chosen the zombies by picking up the diary, causing the deaths of her friends. At least she didn't pick the mermen. Meanwhile, in the control room, Gary sends a security guard to the elevator. He wants to eliminate Marty so the ritual can be completed. Sometime later, the elevator doors open and the guard comes face to face with the two survivors. By a stroke of luck, the zombie's arm grabs the guard's legs, distracting him. The duo takes this opportunity to eliminate him and take his gun along with a nearby dagger. They then escape the area and quickly find themselves in a hallway with many doors. Suddenly, a woman begins to speak to them over the speaker system, telling them to surrender and let themselves be sacrificed. However, the survivors hide in one of the operator rooms just before a squad of guards begins to shoot at them. Dana notices a control system nearby and presses a big red button. This causes all the doors in the hallway to open, releasing an army of monsters. The entire squad of guards is immediately annihilated by various demons who are now free to roam the laboratory. On the other hand, Gary, Steve, and Lynn have locked themselves in the main control room. Their defenses have been overridden, and there is no other way out. Dana and Marty quickly exit the operator room and escape through a hole in the hallway, heading back towards the control room. The monsters manage to break down the steel door. Steve does his best to hold them at bay with his machine gun. Meanwhile, Gary enters the code for the escape hatch that leads to the ground floor. Unfortunately for them, an explosion occurs in the control room, throwing Steve through the air. A horrible fish-like monster approaches him and devours him alive. Fortunately, Gary manages to open the hatch and escapes just in time. He runs through a dark hallway but doesn't get very far. He runs into Dana, who stabs him in the chest with a dagger. Then, this know-it-all hands her the gun and they both venture deeper into the tunnel. The duo soon finds themselves inside a chamber surrounded by 5 stone tombs. It is then that the lab's director reveals herself and finally tells them the truth. If the sacrifice is not completed, the gods who rule the earth will rise again and wreak havoc. She informs them that the sun will rise in 8 minutes and that if Dana wants to save the rest of humanity, she must kill Marty. Completely shaken by this revelation, Dana raises the gun at her friend. Marty can only watch in disbelief as he realizes what she's about to do. But before Dana can pull the trigger, a werewolf lunges from the shadows and bites her in the neck. She recoils in pain and falls near the director. Marty and the director then fight for control of the gun. After an intense struggle, Marty manages to grab it and fires several times at the werewolf, forcing it to flee, whimpering. Dana also manages to survive the attack. Marty then turns his attention to the director and pushes her into the furious depths that open up beneath the chamber. Unfortunately, all these heroic acts mean nothing as the ritual has failed. The two friends sit down and share one last cigarette together. The film ends as a giant hand emerges from the depths and destroys the laboratory.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.